When this new species was originally brought into the fold, most people didn't think much of it. These strange bipeds had almost no hair on them, so you could almost not consider them mammalian. They had no spikes, no scales, no any natural way of defending themselves. So we thought bringing them in was simply to be some sort of fodder for the weapons as we threw them out front. What we did not expect was for them to be so fast, so strong, so aggressive. So aggressive, in fact, that many times they would end up on top of their enemies. This was not seen anymore. Many battles have taken place in what we call the unending war, as it reaches across the entire universe. Different factions fighting for different territories, always fighting somewhere. Our faction just happened to butt up against their sector, so we decided to pull them in. It was going to be something simple. We used them as fodder as we got into position to annihilate the enemy with our weapons. But the humans showed such violence of action, as they called it, that they ended up on top of the enemies, starting to beat them with their weapons, and always using some sort of sharpened spike against them. Many of the Vrishna, the Karne, the Akmidna, and the Shita all ended up falling before the humans. They never understood that the humans could get right up close. Many times there have been videos and pictures of our own forces being within reach of the enemy, and both of us trying to reload our weapons as fast as possible so we could shoot the other. But the humans simply dove in. They would always have these sharpened spikes at the ready. They had them tucked in their pockets, folded away. So a lot of times they had a large blade, as they would call it, a full tang, as they said, which was a large piece of metal with a handle wrapped around it, sharpened and up to a point, as they would dive into these enemy positions and simply start tearing the enemy apart. The Shikna was in particularly shocked, as they had their own type of defenses in the way of claws, a type of claw that was retractable. And yet by the time they realized that this pointy piece of metal was able to do any damage to them, it was too late. The humans were already on top. They would use their significant mass to push the enemy over and then drop on top of them, usually beating them with their weapon. But if they couldn't shoot them and they couldn't beat them, there was always stabbing them, sticking them, slashing them, cutting them, eviscerating them. The humans would go after the enemy with unholy abandon, and it scared us to no end. After several battle lines were stabilized, I was sent to the humans' homeworld to learn their tactics and techniques. We went through what they call basic training with the humans. Their particular ones, infantry, I believe is what it's called. They have numbers and letters that go with this. But part of their training was with these knives, with these blades, with these spikes. They had them everywhere. The instructors had them in their pockets. They had them draping off their belts. They even strapped them to the end of their weapons. I asked them why. And the only thing we got was, sometimes you need to mating their parent. What? Hold on, let me reset the translator. Sometimes you need to stab a motherfucker. I don't get it. That doesn't translate. As we went through our training, we were shown how to care for these devices. For something that is simply a long piece of metal, a lot of care is taken in making sure that they are good and ready for the fight. They're made sure they're not bent or broken. They're always kept sharp. This is a point of pride to every single military that comes out of the human sector. They always have their sharp blades. And it is noted that every single human military says you do not pull these blades unless you're ready to fight to the death. Even when they are out conversing and ethyl alcohol is flowing like water, they never even consider pulling these blades out. Because to pull a blade is to immediately call for a mortal combat, a fight to the death. At least one person will end up bleeding significantly if they're even still alive at the end of it. And we did not want to test these against anyone. We realized the humans, again for their size, were very strong, very dense, and extremely quick, which very much helped them. And it wasn't until we finally got over to their extra training where we finally saw that they would strap these on the end of their projectile weapons. But we spent a lot of time simply walking around with these on the end of the weapons, and we did not understand. Much of it was ceremonial, as every time we did their what they call drill and ceremonies, they would simply strap them on, and these blades would seem to glitter in the sunlight. Many of the soldiers I worked with did not enjoy this, as they constantly had to clean their weapons, clean these blades so that they shined, so that they were sharp, they were ready, and yet they seemed to be decoration. Why? I would not find out till later. We ended up going into what they called a bayonet assault course. I looked at them and I asked, "Why do you do this?" And again got the same answer about stabbing someone. And they simply would laugh at this. We still didn't understand. The few of us that were in that company would simply look at each other confused. The humans understood that we were confused, and the trainers themselves looked at us and tried to calm us down. Listen, sometimes bullets ain't enough. Sometimes you run out of ammo. Sometimes you just don't have a chance to hit somebody. And when you're charging into someone, it's good to actually hurt them when you hit them. Just knocking them down doesn't always work. Of course, the humans again chuckled at this, many of which were veterans of many, many conflicts, at least the instructors. The young ones seemed to just stand there, listening intently on what was being said. When we finally got to the assault course, I kind of shrugged, and the instructor looked at me. I still had not put my bayonet on, and he called out, "Fixed bayonets!" And with that, everyone pulled out their blades and strapped them on to the end of the weapons with a satisfying little click at the end. And then they pulled them forward a little bit and shook them just to make sure they were on. This made sense, as you never wanted your equipment to fail you or fall off at any time. And as we lined up, I saw several of the groups going through the assault course screaming as they went, crashing into everything, hitting everything with the butt of their weapon and stabbing it with the blade. And as I got up front and got started, the instructor walked up to me and asked, "So, has anybody ever told you how to use that thing?" I simply said, "Yes." The pointy end goes into the other man. He simply shook his head. "Oh, shit. This is going to take a lot of work."